Destiny has struggled to find its foothold after the Light and Darkness saga ended with the final shape. The Edge of Fate expansion started an entire new storyline and saga, the Fate Saga, but the expansion didn't quite deliver as Bungie took a lot of swings at new systems, new content structures, and different ways to play the game. The last 4 months has seen the franchise be in the worst shape it's been since the release of Destiny 1 way back in 2014. Renegades looks to advance the game forward with an ambitious crossover with Star Wars, while also trying to remedy some of the problems that the game has had in terms of content structure and flow. Does it deliver? This is the review of Destiny Renegades expansion from a player with over 4,000 hours and someone that has been with the franchise from the beginning. This is going to be a nuanced review of Renegades, as I'm not one to be all negative or all positive. There's some good, there's some bad, and there's some in between here. So let's break this down, starting with the campaign. If you want a too long, didn't watch scenario of my opinion of the expansion, if you're a Destiny player, if you're a longtime Destiny fan, it's worth the money. If you're a Star Wars fan, I think you'll find something here that you enjoy, while also maybe being introduced to one of the better PvE games, especially in a time when Star Wars games have been pretty dry and wanting. If you're a new player or someone just interested in getting into the expansion, be prepared to be confused of the systems, the structure, and the way the game works. Would I recommend this to someone who has never played Destiny before and is looking to get into it? No, probably not. You'll find yourself confused and maybe feeling a bit out of place. Like I said, if you're a Destiny fan, it's definitely worth it. It's not something that's going to sustain hundreds of hours of content. And if you're a Star Wars fan looking for some nods to the franchise that are not complete one-to-one copies of Star Wars, it might be worth you checking out. So let's start the review talking about the campaign. I thought the blending of the Destiny universe with the Star Wars nods, themes, and motifs was done really well here. This is not a one-to-one copy of Star Wars characters and storylines that you might be led to believe if you just read some of the reactions on the internet. The common thing was to call this a slop, desperate crossover. It's not that. There's some really good nods to the Star Wars characters, universe, and weapons and locations here, but it very much still feels like Destiny. I was never at any time pulled out of the Destiny universe of the storyline and felt like I was completely immersed in Star Wars. They do a really good job of advancing the narrative that the Edge of Fate set up regarding the Nine. The Destiny characters are very much present, and the storyline is very much progressing. That is a strong point of this expansion. There were many times in the Light and Dark saga between expansions and seasons where you felt like the plot line was not advancing toward the ultimate goal. This does that. Yes, it does have some nods to Star Wars, but the narrative with binding the Nine, the prophecy, the Guardian's role as the weapon, and the characters that set up the saga, like Lodi and the various members of the Nine, are very much present here. We do have a standard Destiny structure of rotating in and out characters, as Commander Zavala, who is voiced by Keith David, takes a greater front line in this story than Ikora did in Edge of Fate. I personally felt like the story here was stronger than the Edge of Fate because it deepens the narrative that was set up, but also introduces some new characters that are fairly interesting. There is some camp, and there is some things that cause you to question exactly what's going on in the story with character moves. I won't include too many spoilers with that because I'm hoping they get expanded on in the future, because we already know some of these characters are going to be present through the rest of the Fate saga. The characterization of some of the newer characters is great. We have Dredgen Bale, who is an obvious parallel to Kylo Ren, but they do a good job of bringing his motives to the forefront in a Destiny universe feel. He's not just a cosplaying Kylo Ren. He is definitely very much present in the Destiny universe with some background lore, and as someone that looks to be present in the content going forward. The campaign was very well done. Most of the questions were answered, and there was a satisfying resolution to the main conflict with the Death Star parallel, the Darth Vader parallel, and what that weapon was going to do to light and darkness barriers and carriers. So I felt very, very happy with the campaign, the storyline, and the narrative. The delivery of the campaign progression, though, is a little bit awkward. There is that classic Destiny: go to location, talk to one character, walk across that location to talk to another character. That does get tiring. There's also the blending of the new activity, which we'll talk about in a moment, the Lawless Frontier, in with the campaign structure. Very much like old Destiny campaigns where they had you do a Lost Sector tour or a preview of the activity, that is present here. Bungie is sort of in a rock and a hard place with that, because if they don't introduce the new activity in the campaign, then it is difficult to get players acclimated to it and thrown into the post-campaign loop without some sort of tutorial. I think they do it mostly well here. It does seem to be too much, though. You do get the classic go to each location and perform a Lawless Frontier while the narrative advances in the background. So that is very much falling into the camp of more Destiny. Like I said, it is difficult for new players or people that are not going to go through the menu tutorials for the activity. So it does introduce that to them rather early on in the campaign to get them used to that. There are 3-4 campaign missions that are not tied in with the Lawless Frontier that are excellent. They do have very much Star Wars parallel, and there will be some spoiler footage of that after in the next few minutes showing those. But they do start off very much reminiscent of A New Hope, getting captured by the new Barrent Imperium, which is the Empire stand-in, progressing all the way through to destroying the Death Star shields, going to a trench run, and fighting on aboard the bridge, very much a la Return of the Jedi. They're very well done, though. Like I said, they have a Destiny feel to it. And the Cabal faction, the Barrent Imperium, is the most interested I've been in the Cabal over the history of the franchise. The aesthetics do it for me. The voice acting of the primary Darth Vader stand-in for the Cabal is excellent. And it really makes you feel immersed as if this is a new faction in the Destiny universe with a bit of Star Wars flair to it. So I think that was really well done. The campaign missions were great. If there were more of them in the campaign, I would even rank this campaign higher. But with Bungie's layoffs and what it looks like their content structure is now, I think they've done a mostly good job of blending the campaign with the activity. So all in all, the campaign, if you're a Destiny fan, if you like the Destiny universe, the characters, it's well done. If you're a Star Wars fan and you'd like to see a different spin on the characters that you know and love in this shared universe with Destiny, I think you'll also find something here that is worth your time. I definitely would recommend playing the campaign if you're interested in either of those. Is it a campaign that is going to be revolutionary for longtime Destiny fans like the Witch Queen or the Final Shape or Beyond Light? No, it's not, but it does deepen the Destiny universe, progress the narrative of the current saga, and it's a good time. So I would definitely give the campaign a recommendation if you're looking to buy the expansion, just for the narrative, just for the campaign. Moving into the post-game campaign, the post-campaign gameplay loop, it does center around the Lawless Frontier. The new activity has a structure of playing a 3-man activity with multiple objectives on Venus, which is akin to Tatooine. Mars, which is akin to Tatooine, Venus for Dagobah, and Europa, which is Hoth. There are some little nods to the Star Wars universe, like some of the Cabal hanging from frozen stalactites from the ceiling on Europa, and a crashed ship, which is supposed to be Luke's X-Wing on Venus. Those are really nice touches that make you feel a little more immersed in the crossover, but the structure of the activity is actually fun. There's enough varied objectives here between smuggling and capturing cargo, transporting it to a different location, to bounty hunts, that make each run feel a little more exciting than just repeating the same activity over and over. So as you progress through those, there is a bit of an extraction shooter spin on this, to where after you capture the objectives, 3 of them, you'll progress to an exfil where you have to do 1 more objective and survive to get the maximum rewards for the activity. The challenge isn't something to scoff at in these. They are a little more challenging than your standard seasonal activity. The ads are a little more dense. The enemies hit a little harder. They're a little harder to kill, especially while juggling the objectives. So I was pleased with that. It's not just a complete face roll. You do actually have to have a competent build together and try. So the other part of the Lawless Frontier is the invasion aspect, which is similar to Gambit, but not really. You can choose to invade and become the person hunting down the other 3 players, performing the objectives in the PvE activity, and they can fight back. So depending on how much you wager a currency, you'll get rewards proportionate to how you perform as an invader. The first few days that I did this, I was pretty pleased with it because it felt like an evolution to the Gambit mode, to where the invader definitely had to use their abilities and their gun skill to overcome the PvE enemies that are going to stop the objective that they're doing to turn your attention to you. But as the days have gone on and the Renegade abilities have become more fleshed out and upgraded, it has turned into a meta of just using the ones that give you your super back immediately and the ones that identify and give you wall hacks. So that meta is turning into the invader comes in, drops both of those abilities, pops their super, gets as many kills as possible, and comes out. That mixed with the Walker ability does sort of water down the interaction of the PvP aspect, which is a little disappointing for me to see as someone who enjoys the competitive PvP aspect. But it is different from your standard Destiny modes. And it's meant to be a little wacky and silly and using these StarWars abilities to get you a little more into the action, engaging with the PvE players, doing the objectives. So for what it is, the invasion aspect is definitely different and unique. Is it something that is going to give you a lot of depth to it and coming back just to be invaders after you get the title and get your fill? No, probably not. And I feel the same way about the Lawless Frontier. The loot is nice with the blaster weapons, and I think that is going to be an excellent addition to the Destiny sandbox. But is there enough here doing the Lawless Frontiers once you've maxed out the factions, gotten all of the loot, reached the max level to get the tier 5 drops? In my opinion, no. After this expansion cycle goes through, I don't see the Lawless Frontier being an activity you go back to as a standard part of the Destiny gameplay experience unless they update it fairly heavily and add new loot, which it doesn't seem like that will be the case, as this is already stated going to be one of the only collaboration expansions that Bungie does like this for Destiny. The other loot that was heavily advertised is the lightsaber, or the Praxic Blade. Its customization, its interactions, its performance is excellent. I always hated using swords in Destiny, even to the point when Ergo Sum came out in Final Shape and I thought this is going to be it. This will be the sword that I always use. It wasn't. The lightsaber is. This will be something that I never take off of the Guardian I'm playing, just because it is very versatile, it performs great, and it gives a lot of good synergy with the builds that you have. It's very customizable too. There are 4 different catalysts to get that changes how it behaves, to where the throw power is increased, the reflecting shot power is increased, or the melee is increased. You can change the color of your blade, just like you would in the Star Wars universe with a different kyber crystal, depending on an activity. You saw earlier I had the red color lightsaber that actually came from successfully invading. And there are others there for completing different higher end content and different objectives in the PvE, PvP game. So the lightsaber is great. The animations are crisp, they're smooth, the sound design is excellent. And that's another point of the expansion as a whole. The sound design here is excellent. The score is great. It feels like a blend of Destiny and Star Wars. And that is one of the best in the gaming industry and the entertainment industry, in my opinion. So the lightsabers are positive. We've yet to see some of the other exotics because they're coming from the dungeon, which is set to launch on December 13th. I'm anticipating that some of the characters whose plot lines were not resolved in the campaign will probably be present in the dungeon. Spoiler alert ahead. That would be the Cabal leader, the Premier Loom, and Dredge and Bale. I'm hoping that the dungeon contest experience is great because that keeps me coming back to Destiny. The in-game contest races, the day 1 clears, are always a good experience in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to this one. We will see how that launches on December 13th, and after it does, that will add a little more to the post-campaign loop, in that the loot, which has already been previewed, are all blaster weapons of popular archetypes that are supposedly really strong. There is an extra catalyst for the lightsaber. The exotic for the dungeon looks to be Chewbacca's crossbow blaster, which also appears very powerful. I'm sure there will be a unique armor set to that as well as a title. So the dungeon, in tandem with the Lawless Frontier, will give enough post-game content, or post-campaign content, I think, until the next go of a Destiny update, which seems to be coming in the spring. So all in all, There is enough here in this expansion that I consider it a good one. Is it going to completely revitalize Destiny and change the content structure from what it has been in Edge of Fate? No, the portal's still there. That's still the main way to level. If you're hoping and looking to get into this expansion to bring Destiny back to the quote-unquote glory days, this one's likely not going to do that. It's a fun time in a Destiny blended universe with some Star Wars nods. The new additions to the sandbox are excellent. The campaign is good. And I think there's going to be enough post-campaign content here to get us through to the next update. So if you fall into that camp, check it out.